and welcome back our co-host returning from his sick bed, the Admiral, Bill Stubblefield.
Sick bed. Got up with my swords a-flying.
What'd you call sick bay there in the on the ships there, Bill?
We never got sick on the ships. We fought through it, Rob. Nobody ever got sick.
Anybody ever confined?
Except the morning after leaving the first day from port, we all were sick.
Everybody got. So you got your sea legs.
Yeah.
Also, New York Times bestselling author John Gilstrap.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Glad to be here. Happy Monday.
Good to have you. Anything you want to tell the audience about the future moods of John Gilstrap? Anything you wanted to share?
No, I'm going to be office-less for a couple of weeks starting tomorrow.
But that will not carry over to us, will it, John?
No.
You just got through saying you're going to be miserable and
there's a chance that I might be cranky, but I'm enough of a professional that the audience won't know it.
It's just the ones around the table.
The studio may know it, yeah.
Via telephone, Financial Phil McCoy from Ameriprise Financial and the Mirius Group of Financial Advisors on Winchester Avenue, Martinsburg. Good morning, Philly.
Who is never cranky.
Good morning, guys. How are you all?
I don't know. Phil might have been a little cranky during that Steeler game yesterday.
It was. You know, I had just said, and I've changed my mind. I have always said there's no such thing as a bad win. You know, we came back from a long weekend of Shepherd volleyball. They won 3 of 4. 2 of them were pretty ugly, and I said there's no such thing as a bad win. And my Pittsburgh Steelers showed me this weekend there is such thing as a bad win. They just got one. If that had to be the most disheartening win I've ever cheered for. I didn't know how to feel afterwards. I felt like they deserved to lose in the worst of ways. I felt bad for Patriots fans. But they did win, so 2-1. Hopefully they can get some of this stuff heading in the right direction. I would say if you're looking for positives, the defense looked a little bit better. It's not saying much, but they did look a little bit better. They caused a little havoc. T.J. Watt made an appearance. Eric Harmon looked pretty good for a rookie. So from that standpoint, I guess a little bit better. The offense did not look any better whatsoever. But 5 turnovers and you squeak out a win against a 1-2 team, that should have been a 30-point game, man. But nonetheless, 2-1. We'll head on to next week.
You know, you hold a team to 14 points. You create 5 turnovers. You get 5 sacks. You should be pretty happy with that defensive performance. But that was not the case when you actually watched the game. It really was pretty ugly. I mean, New England had 2 turnovers down inside the 5-yard line. They had
in the end zone, yeah. And it was, I mean, granted, maybe good plays by Pittsburgh. One from Brandon Eccles. I hope he sees more time. But still, it was, one was just the running back that had the dropsies. And, I mean, he couldn't hold on to anything. And it was just pure luck. But still, they're 2-1. So you got to take that for what it is.
Now, your Shepherd Rams, Phil, are concerning right now. At 0-3, Clarion rang up, 51 on Shepherd this past Saturday. It's not looking good for the Rams this year.
No, and from afar, because I haven't really got to watch any of them. I've been participating in other Shepherd sporting events, but, looking at scores and watching, I don't recall – and I'm sure someone knows. I don't recall a time they started 0-3. Probably, I don't want to jinx them, but probably 0-4 because they're getting ready to play a really tough team coming up. So it's been a while since that football program has experienced a down year. Looks like this one may be it.
Bill, did you see the WVU Kansas game?
I did. It was not much of a game. WVU was overwhelmed in every aspect of the game. It was not near the same showing they had against Pitt the week before. They
killed all the good spirit they built to the
exactly right. Yeah, no, there was a lot of enthusiasm going to last Saturday's game, but it all disappeared. They did not play well.
Well, Washington won without their starting quarterback. That's a good sign.
Yeah, but their starting the backup quarterback was a Heisman Trophy winner just a few years ago, so he's no dummy.
He's no dummy. He's been around a little bit. Phil, let's talk some money. Right, we got a rate cut, and we're going to get a couple more. And we closed out the week pretty strong last week.
Yes, we did, and we're anticipating a couple more anyway. And it's still the data-driven tone that Jerome Powell used, and we get some of that data later this week with the PCE. which is the Fed's preferred inflation guide. But there's a lot of information coming out this week. There's some tech companies that's reporting that will either keep us afloat with our hopes for artificial intelligence. We get some Fed speak. Jerome Powell has an interview that he's going to participate in. So we'll see if we can gather anything from that. I think he said it all last week, so I don't really think his speech is all that important. But the PCE is all that important. So as we battle these two, just a constant reminder that what's on their plate is, on one hand, inflation, on the other hand, labor. So as we run through this, as in this economic easing period that our markets cheered last week, we do still have to pay attention to this data. And as Mike Tomlin says, two times is a trend. So I don't know that any individual report would cause drastic changes, but two or three very well could. So at the moment, we're anticipating 2 more cuts for this year. Whether or not we get those, I don't know. Whether or not they're a little bit steeper, but we have touched all-time highs. It's been 3 consecutive weeks of gains. So at last look, anyway, I think the markets are a little bit red, and I don't know that that's surprising coming off the week that we just had last week.
I've criticized Powell in the past, the Fed chairman, for being too slow to make a move, and he's been criticized recently for the same from several folks. And the economic data that's coming in is trending in the wrong way, and he finally made an interest rate cut. Did he wait too long once again to make a move here, Phil?
I don't think so because of the dual mandate. And, that will be debated, of course, because he has a history. He did wait too long for rate increases back in 22, and I understood that, and I defended him against a lot of people on this show. I defended him a lot, and I'll defend again because, on one hand, the focus was on inflation. It still hadn't trended down to the area where they had wanted. John Gilstrap rightfully said, probably a year, maybe more ago, why not just say 2.5%? Isn't that acceptable? And I kind of agree that 2% seems a little bit out there as far as where that target should be. But nonetheless, at the same time, we had a healthy labor market. So why cut rates? But the trend on the labor market has been concerning, which is what led to the rate cut. So it's for a bad reason that they cut rates last week. It's not for a good reason, but there is now a dual mandate, and I think it would be far worse to cut rates and then have to increase rates again first or second quarter next year than to never have cut at all. But they have now shifted their focus to the labor market. Not that they're not paying attention to inflation, but for the moment, they're saying, hey, this labor market is a bigger problem than inflation.
Your buddy Eric O'Rourke wants to know if you're getting pulled over while you're doing this interview.
I am not getting pulled over, but I am at my customary spot at Sheetz, and there was an emergency somewhere because they came driving by. But no, I'm not getting pulled over.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Were you a little bit surprised by the consumer spending numbers last week being as high as they were?
Yes, and I have, and that's something that has been constantly surprising, and a constant is a strong consumer. We have maintained, and that's one of the reasons why inflation hadn't gotten down to their target. If you want to look for anyone, there's a lot of blame to go around for inflation, and you certainly don't want to get into that. But with all the things that you can point to and say, this is why inflation was the way that it is, and it still hasn't gotten down to their target, the number one culprit of that is the consumer. And it's because as long as we are willing as consumers as a whole, and I'm sure there's a lot of Facebook posts right now saying how I don't buy this anymore and I don't buy that anymore, but consumers as a whole continues to purchase it, and the prices will not go down if we continue to purchase at that same rate. Put yourself in their shoes. If you're selling something, if someone is willing to pay more for it than if you raise your prices and it doesn't hurt your sales, you're going to keep those prices up. So there's no reason to cut your prices. So the consumer, by and large, has supported the higher prices, which is why inflation hasn't come back down to that target. Is that is the biggest reason why. It's not we want to blame it on any administration. They both point the fingers at each other. If we want to blame it on Russia and Ukraine and blame it on all these different things, but the number one culprit is the consumer.
If the people, this isn't a political question, if the community of people are happy with the price of things and the way things are going, is that a definition of a healthy economy, even if the numbers and the academic numbers are bad? If people are comfortable with the way the economy is going, can we call that a healthy economy?
I think you can, and that that goes back to the argument that you made, which I wholeheartedly agree with. If there's anything that I disagree with the Federal Reserve over the last couple of years, it's that target. That target of 2%. And like you said, if it is a healthy number, why can't it be 2.5? Why does it have to be such a hard line 2% inflation rate? Why can't 2.5 or some other number? Because it appears to be arbitrary, right? We just put this number on as we see fit and let the consumer decide that. Let the consumer decide, where's that breaking point? Because we've done as consumer as a whole, and I'm sure, another thing popped in my head. I know there's a Facebook post coming up saying, well, people have to buy these things. People don't have to travel. People don't have to buy new cars. People don't have to buy new clothes. So some of these discretionary items that we continue to purchase, if we continue to purchase, maybe we grumble about it, but we still pay for it. That is a healthy consumer. That is a healthy economy. So I would agree with that. If we're still purchasing it, then the price isn't too high.
Let me just go back and say that they do have to purchase new cars if that auto dealer advertises on talk radio, WRNR, and TV10. Get out there and take advantage of those new cars, those new car deals.
Yeah, Phil, picking up on that, you've added another acronym to the bowl of alphabet soup that we refer to. We hear CPI, CPE, and all that, but now we're talking about PCE. PCE. You've used it 2 or 3 times. Personal consumption expenditure. I was not really familiar with that until you started invoking the term. Explain that and explain the what it measures.
It's basically the expenses that consumers spend. So we start off with CPI, and then we go to the PPI, and then the third of this. Almost always the third report is the PCE, which is the one that's coming up. It gets the least amount of attention. As you just mentioned, most people don't even know it exists because of the first 2 reports, the Consumer Price Index and the Producer Price Index. But then on the third one, it's going to tell us how much we consumed of that. And that goes back to what John Gilstrap had just said. If we're consuming it, if we're purchasing it, if consumers are willing to spend money, there's the expenditure in there on the PCE side, then where does that leave us? Is that, by definition, a healthy economy? I would argue that it is, on the discretionary side. But this is the one that the Federal Reserve says they pay most attention to, is that third report. And now, because they pay most attention to it, I think we should pay the most attention to it, but we don't. We pay most attention to the CPI because it's typically the first one. So the first one typically moves markets. I think what we think as investors is we think we know what that PCE report's going to be because of the first 2 reports, which is why it gets the least amount of attention.
Now, the PCE excludes energy and food. Is that correct?
There's a few reports. You got but it does. There's one that excludes the most volatile aspects, and there's one that does not exclude them. But our focus goes to the one that excludes the most volatile aspects.
Also,
your core and overall.
Your daily reports, which, by the way, Phil, I listen to intently. I stop whatever I'm doing when Financial Phil comes on for the first 30 seconds or so. And you've started invoking artificial intelligence as a driver. Is the stock market gauge or biased heavily in favor of artificial intelligence? Or the basic question is, why is it driving the stock market so much?
Well, that's a new piece of our economy. When you look at overall GDP, artificial intelligence is that new thing that can and has been taking us, and it's been the first leg. We look at the economy And then separate from the economy, although they're not the same, but then you look at our markets, each and every bull run that we have had post-COVID has started with some sort of positive artificial intelligence news, NVIDIA in particular. And then following up on that, those that haven't kept up with the overall artificial intelligence move or wave and on the tech side, they haven't done as well. So you look at, I think Apple is one that may not have monetized artificial intelligence as much as some of the others. So those that are monetizing this, they have, and I got to be honest with you, I'm still confused on how it gets monetized to the extent that it does. But maybe I just haven't put enough focus on how. I just know that it does get monetized, but it has been that next leg. So what we've seen over and over again post-COVID, post-COVID lockdowns is artificial intelligence is the leg. It drives everything. There's a skinny top, meaning that there's just a few companies, and we still have a skinny top. And then those slow down a little bit, and everything catches back up, and then we wait yet again for artificial intelligence to take off. But if you rewound to pre-COVID, that would be a very small, if any, part of our market movements. But now it is the main driver, and it has happened quickly. And, look at none other than NVIDIA, that 10 years ago, those that held the stock kind of saw NVIDIA as a gaming company, and it didn't have much movement. It didn't have a lot of attention, and now it's a household name because it still may be the largest company in the world. And it went on that top 10 list quickly, and it took over the number one spot really quickly, and it's all because of artificial intelligence.
With a potential merger between Intel being absorbed by NVIDIA, are we seeing a concentration of artificial intelligence, just 2 or 3 mega companies, or are there some emerging smaller companies coming along the line?
There's some that's coming, but it's anyone's guess. And, you look at an exchange-traded fund, and the ticker symbol escapes me right now. I'll find it while I'm talking. But there's an exchange-traded fund that tries to include all the artificial intelligence companies, and it's SMH. That's one of them anyway. And it tries to include all of them, but it is a skinny top with the ones. It's the mega companies that have done the best, but there are other players that's coming along. Oracle, I think, is one that had a huge increase just a few weeks ago. And, Intel is another, but there are some that's coming along that would threaten NVIDIA's dominance. But right now it's still the king of the mountain. But there's others that's coming along. Just like any type of new, think of Apple and Samsung years ago, there's really nothing that's ever challenged Apple on the cell phone front. But how much larger can Apple possibly get? Everyone has one now. When you think of a cell phone, you think of Apple. I remember my mother and father, when I was growing up, they used to name laundry detergent, and people are going to laugh at me for this. I thought there was one kind of laundry detergent. I thought there was only Tide, because my mother would send me to the grocery store, and she would say, get the Tide, go get Tide. And even more so, she liked the smell of Cheer, and she would say, go get that the Tide Cheer. That's what she would tell me. So I would go to the grocery store thinking that Cheer was a Tide brand, and it's not. I didn't know that until I came up here. But they did that with everything, dishwashing liquid. They did that with appliances. Everything was a Frigidaire. They did that with everything. And I thought there were only one brand. That's how secluded I was. But that's how cell phones were, and that's how artificial intelligence is at the moment. When you say artificial intelligence, to me, my brain goes directly to NVIDIA, and I think it does for most people as well.
There's a huge class action suit against AI companies from the Authors Guild.
If you think about it, it exists by stealing other people's information.
Yeah, and they've hoovered up all of this without buying the books. They've hoovered up all this information and violated all those copyrights. So it's an enormous lawsuit, of which I am a part.
And I think there's a lot of dangers that maybe that I fear with artificial intelligence. And we just had an in-depth training on tax law and IRAs and so forth over the last 2 weeks. And during that training, it was an EdSlot training, and that's a huge part of what we do is that, we talk about this and we advise to an extent as taxes. We tax plan, and the likes, and we use people around. It's not just us. We use those around us. Ken Apple knows, because in Bonnie Donacious and those people, we call them all the time. But during this training, they used a few examples where artificial intelligence couldn't give you direction, and it was wrong. It gave you the wrong answer. It gave you an outdated law because it's just pulling up old information, or it's pulling up information online, and it's really not a whole lot different than Google. It's just much quicker. If you go Google it, as my kids would tell me, Google that, Dad, but it's not always correct. And I think that there's a lot of danger in that. And there's a lot of people like John had just said that said, wait a minute, this is using my information, and it's skirting me, my intellectual property, in order to spit this out to someone else. So I think that it does have some headwinds from things like that in our future. How they work around that, I don't know. But as it improves, those things will come up as well.
Financial Phil McCoy, our guest here on the program. The AI thing, first and foremost, we'll back up on this a little bit too, because all of us have our information bought and sold every minute of the day by internet companies, and it should be illegal. You consent to a lot of this when you use a service for free. That shouldn't be permitted either. So your information is out there. Even when you go to your doctor's office, your information is then subject to being stolen by somebody else who gets into your doctor. I think I've gotten 4 notices from doctor's offices in the last 2 years, and labs that store information that they've been compromised. And this happens routinely, and we just kind of accept it as, that's just kind of what happens. Everybody's information is getting bought and sold out there all the time. And then AI comes along and it's like eminent domain of information. It just takes everything for the better good of society, right? So that they can create more artificial intelligence. And all this, as John said, he's involved in a lawsuit. This is all just information that continually is stolen from all of us.
Yeah, it's philosophically we want to push back on it, push back hard, but there's a convenience factor, and we pay for the being exposed to giving information away for convenience. And actually, convenience is a major importance to every one of us.
Yeah, I don't know if that's convenience or not, Bill. It might be convenience to some people. To others, it's a severe intrusion on their privacy.
But aren't you willing to pay that? Don't you pay that every day?
No, I don't have a choice.
Well, if you go to Google, you basically are doing it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about selling my information as the price for going to Google. There's ads on Google. That's the price for going to Google. That should be the price for going to Google, that I have to watch an ad I don't want to watch.
Yeah, but when you pull up your Netflix feed, aren't you glad Netflix is tracking, because it's your name, not your wife's name? When you click it's your name, it's going to show you the kinds of movies you like to see, so you don't have to go through the kinds of movies you don't like to see?
No, I don't like that. I don't like to be pigeonholed into a category. Right. You do that with internet search engines. If you click on one article, you get 600 of the same, like that's all you want to read about. That's why we're all so angry at each other all the time. We only get one side of the news. You have to work so hard to get the other side of the news. Click on one article about something you don't care about, and you're going to get 50 articles sent to you, or you'll be driven in that direction the next time you open up your browser.
Well, it's interesting, and it's also going back to the book business, that it's beneficial that if somebody reads a Brad Thor book or they buy through Amazon, then Amazon's going to recommend a John Gilstrap book, right? But they're not going to recommend some adventure book that they might really like.
Because you're pigeonholed now.
But they'll just never hear about it.
Bill, how do we get more information from you, sir, about all this money floating around out there?
We've forgotten about Phil, haven't we?
Yeah, I like to listen to you guys talk there. You make really good points. But you can reach us at 304-263-4343 or stop by and see us with an appointment at 1270 Winchester Avenue, right here, Martinsburg.
Steelers in Ireland next against Minnesota. Phil, give me your prediction.
Oh, my gosh. Let's go. I'm not going to pick them to lose. I'm going to go Pittsburgh Steelers win 24-23. They got to get 14 turnovers to make that happen.
Have a good day, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Catch Phil each weekday morning at 6:38. Replayed at 7:38. 2 minutes about the day's business.